So, welcome. The Bitcoin community is talking about Taproot. Taproot is an update to the Bitcoin blockchain, which was activated on November 14th in 2021. And when you skim through the internet and you read all the news, then the Taproot update promises more privacy. It promises Bitcoin smart contracts and more scalability. And yeah, you find a lot of these headlines, but it is quite hard to understand what actually Taproot is and what are the basics. So the basic of Taproot is when you think about something we call batching or batches in the IT world. It is when you have let's say 10 things and you combine them into one thing, then you batch them together into one. In Bitcoin or in any other blockchain network, there is always, let's call it a fight for space or a fight for data, meaning when millions of people want to do transactions, then millions of new entries need to be on the blockchain. And also all these entries, which are usually transactions, they need to be verified. So it needs to be checked that the person that has, for example, added a transaction to the blockchain is also eligible to do that, meaning having there a private key that is valid, owning Bitcoin, for example. So what Taproot does, and this is also written here on Investopedia as key takeaway, it can batch multiple signatures and transactions together, and that will just make generally will make in the future, and maybe does already if people already started using it, the verification of transactions faster. And also you can just generally fit more into the same space that you previously used. One thing that they are generally talking about is also is a so-called Schnorr signature. So in the blockchain space, everything is based on signatures. So when you make a transaction, you have to sign with your private key your transaction in order to prove that you are also that you are the owner of that transaction, of those bitcoins, and then you can basically do it. If you don't able to do those signatures, then you can also not do these transactions. One thing that many people do not know is that Bitcoin actually has a sort of a smart contract language. It is called Bitcoin script, and here also it's called scripting language. The reason for this is it's not a complex Turing complete language like you have on Ethereum, for example, where you can do loops and all type of things. It is a simple scripting language that allows you to do certain things, but not everything that you could do with a Turing complete language. So in the past, also especially before Taproot, you could already use Bitcoin script, and it was also used, for example, for multi-signature, for certain types of multi-signature wallets, meaning that not one person, but maybe 2 or 3 people need to sign a transaction with their private key. Or, for example, that you could set up a wallet or an address where you could just spend certain amounts after a certain amount of time. And little things like that. But in the future, when you add a transaction to the blockchain, you are actually able to also add a script with together with your signature, meaning you basically you do not only send a transaction or multiple transactions and you have them signed by a key, you can also add scripts. So this will allow that one script maybe calls another script, and this can make smart contracts quite complex and allow more interesting use cases and things on Bitcoin. So in short, this is already the Taproot upgrade. You can read a lot about Bitcoin script on the Bitcoin Wiki. It's bitcoin.it/wiki. Here, this is super nerdy. It's very hard to understand, but you will find a lot of there's basically descriptions, what you can do and cannot do. Some of the features of Bitcoin script were actually removed when there was a SegWit update because the developers thought that it can maybe endanger the Bitcoin blockchain. And also one reason why Bitcoin script language is not Turing complete and cannot make loop is because back in the days they wanted to avoid that over complex scripts could lead to some sort of DDoS attack, meaning that the network could be overwhelmed by scripts that are just calling themselves and just clocking up the network and breaking the blockchain. One more thing, so a hash or like a signature, let's say it a signature, is usually like a wild combination of characters and numbers. And in the Bitcoin and blockchain world, you had like a very different type of addresses over the different updates. So for example, here you see addresses starting with a 3. You have one with a 1. You have one which start with BC1. And generally, by looking at these signatures, you could tell if it's a multi-signature transaction, for example, or if it's a transaction from a simple, like just one person, one wallet, one key. In the future, with the so-called Schnorr signatures, which were introduced with the Taproot update, this is not possible anymore, meaning you could have a very complex transaction containing scripts, containing multiple signatures, and by just looking at the signatures on the blockchain, you cannot tell that. So you don't know that. This feature basically makes Bitcoin more private, as you don't know if a script has triggered a certain transaction or a person or multiple people. So this is why also the Taproot update introduces better privacy, at least when you start using those signatures. But one very important thing in the Bitcoin blockchain is this whole update is a so-called soft fork, meaning if you just use your old wallet or the old way to sign and send transactions, it will work the same way. So so this is there is unlimited to read and to learn, but I hope that this gave you a little interesting update on Taproot, and leave me a comment if you like this. Thank you.